Okie dokie. I'm happy. So I'm recording now.
Okay.
History of my name, the Adrienne part or the gun part?
The Adrienne.
Adrienne part. As far as I know, my mother there was some girl in high school that had a name that was Adrienne, and my mom thought she was wonderful, but she wanted to be creative and make it different. So she called me Adrienne, and it means dark and rich. Is what I've looked up. Gun's pretty fun. Gun clan is one of the oldest Scottish clans. We were Danes, i.e. Vikings, who settled in northern Scotland. Also, I think it's Sir James Gunn. There's some sort of, it's a plaque or something carved out somewhere in like 60 some odd years prior to Columbus being around. Somewhere in Boston, there's a plaque with the gun crest on it because one of the Templar knights way back in my clan was here.
How fantastic.
Kind of cool. And then I met someone when I was driving Lyft. I met someone from Cameroon who says that Adrienne is actually also a name in Cameroon. Who knew that? I didn't know.
Wow.
Which I only recently found out. Part of my DNA is about 13% from Cameroon, and then other mix of West Africa. Everyone's surprised.
Did you do like a 23andMe or something like that? Or?
I did. My dad kept bugging me to do it, and I'm like, fine. Yeah, I did. So I'm not entirely sure how a human can find out more about that aspect of lineage, but I think a lot of us have been cut off from learning about our actual heritage in a lot of ways, either like through people we actually know. I think it's great grandfather wrote a really boring book called Gun that I could never get past page 5 of. He's a horrible writer. Awful. It's really thick. Anyway, I appreciate you asking. That's fun. Hi friends, welcome back.
Hey.
So yeah, I suppose I should do the thing where I like share screen and we jump into this.
Can we ask everyone to mute and then unmute when you want to talk so there's no back?
Are you getting noise?
No, but I don't want any. I just want your voice.
I feel that way sometimes too. Okay, I'm moving a bunch of things around so I can actually, all right. I have your faces. I have my presenter notes. Okay. So we're sharing this screen. We're at part 2. I think spacebar works cool. I know how the buttons work. So what we are endeavoring to do again is learn how to have challenging conversations while maintaining rapport. We're learning how to change someone's mind, including our own. And I want to repeat that one of the core philosophies that I decided to follow, because I kept hearing it in my brain as I was putting together these beautiful and complicated notes about how communication works. And because I have a vast background in like stuff I'm not going to teach you at all, I am leaning very heavily on the fact that 95% of the communication is body language and tonality. And that really only 5% of our communication are the words we choose to use. So what we did last time was we leaned really heavily on sensory acuity, paying attention to the body language, rapport, getting so that your body is speaking in a way that people can connect with you. So that, today we're going to do more of actually talking about words. We're going to talk about tonality as well. Because my foundational philosophy is that if in this short amount of time, if I can get all of you recognizing and prioritizing things that women versus men are trained better to do, pay attention to these sort of things and utilize ourselves and shift our flexibility of communication. That's what I've experienced. If I can get you there, you're 95% of the way to being able to, it doesn't matter what you say. Was my core philosophy. The other thing that I'm also doing my best to do is give experiential process here, because I'm trained in fun and weird. I am going to do the things that are experiential and weird to your benefit, because that's not something you can just read and Google and find out more about. Does that make sense? And I'm bringing that up today because, okay, apparently I'm ahead of a thing. So I'm going to repeat what we did last time, and then I'm going to finish the end of my because that just happened. So we utilize the hakalau, which is peripheral vision, so that we can notice things better, getting more access to our unconscious mind, getting more access to being able to notice people's shifts. Hakalau also gets us into a more resourceful state of calming our nervous system and our blood pressure, that sort of thing. So the idea is that if you're going to approach someone who's a stranger or try a conversation that could be difficult, getting into that state first. Also, it's an easier state to learn things and take in information. I talked about core beliefs that influential communicators have, and we installed some of those. I'm curious, show of hands, did any of you notice any differences in responding to people just on new beliefs? Cool. Some head nods. Awesome. Yay, worked. We talked a bit how people work, how brains filter information. And who saw the gorilla? Right on. Okay. So some of us saw the gorilla, some of us didn't, but we know more now about how some people are filtering information and completely, like, some things are invisible to them. And that's an absolute reality. So if it can happen to Lisa, it can happen to all of us in some area of our lives. Maybe not gorillas, but bananas, say. We don't know. And then we talked about sensory acuity. We talked about new things to pay attention to in someone's physiology, small things to pay attention to in someone's physiology that we might not have been consciously looking at or measuring for in the past. And we talked about it in a way where we can begin to become really specific about what we see so that we can create catalogs for each person that we know and begin to learn their tells. Then we learned about rapport, how to be more responsive or get more responsiveness for somebody. Rapport is often talked about as whether people like you, and it's okay for that to be a shorthand. And someone might not like you when you're in rapport, but it is going to increase responsiveness. Okay. Boom. I seem to think that there's a slide. Okay, sure. This is just me showing those filters. I'm going to talk about the filters again. So we learned about the ways in which we filter, and the only way that we can know what's going on inside someone, sometimes we can ask them. Some people don't know what's going on inside themselves either. But what we get are their words and behaviors. And then our task today is to begin to learn how to decode more of the words and language that we get, and how to more effectively utilize our own language and words that we're choosing to then install beliefs and pictures in other people's heads and to be more influential. Okay, the overview of where we're going today is emotions. What the heck? I thought it'd be really great because I hear one of the challenges for people about having a challenging conversation is they get triggered or angry or sad. Or can you believe that other people affect us emotionally? What happens all of the time? So what I want to do first is to talk about emotions, what the heck they're for, how to pay attention to your own emotions. And then the thing I want to do for you with my weirdness is to help install what's called a resource anchor so that you can have more emotional agility in these situations. The idea is, what if you had a button that you could press on your own body that when you pressed it, you got to feel a certain way when you needed to? So sometimes people have unresourceful emotions that enter their body before they know, oh no, I'm worried, I'm going to talk to somebody. Well, I'm going to give you a power knuckle, a magic button that you can press that will fill your body with the emotions that you want to have in that moment. so that you can access more of your resources, so that instead of being stuck in your own emotions, you can do things like pay attention to other people's facial features and that sort of thing. So I thought that was really important. If we're going to work on foundational kinesthetics, how about also giving you access to more emotional agility? So however long that takes, we're going to do that together. It's going to be fun. I'm going to talk about some descriptions of how change works, when it works. Part of the homework from our last session was for you to think about a time where you changed your mind or your life changed or you made a change, and sort of journal on that. Who remembered and did that? Okay, cool. And then one of the prompts was also to think about somewhere in your life or something that's not satisfactory right now, some problem that you have. And we're going to do a process with that challenge or problem to help you find a shift. We're going to help you get a shift, because what I want, before I talk about how change works, I want you to have a lived in experience, an embodied experience of change working, so that it all makes sense when I talk about how change works. Then we're going to talk about a few communication models so that you know what to say and how. Boop, boop, yay. Pretty groovy. Okay, so I know that I gave homework. I appreciate that some did and some did not. I am curious. Oh, I lost my chat. That's why things feel funny. Chat is a different space. I'm gonna click it. I clicked it. Here it is. Okay, that's my song for opening the chat box on my screen. You're welcome. Everybody wanted that. No Grammy for my chat song. Okay, so I am curious, in the chat box, those of you who did it, who knows your representational systems, whether it's visual, kinesthetic, auditory, or auditory digital? Do you remember? And then put it in the chat. A couple visual. Groovy. Okay. Some mixed. Auditory digital is sort of mixed. And visual, groovy, groovy. And all right. Visual folks. Great. That's helpful for me to know for this next thing we're going to do. Okie dokie. And if you have any questions from our last section, what I'm wondering is if you would take a moment and write the question in chat now before we jump in and start. Will you write any questions or lingering thoughts about what we experienced 2 weeks ago that you remember, or any of your experiences between? And I'm going to pay attention to them, and if I can address them while I'm talking about these new topics, I will. And I just want to keep them in mind in case it makes sense to answer it now before we dive in deep. Okay, sweet, sweet. Yes. Yeah, that's a big thing. Just pausing just in case there are other questions coming in. Questions or statements. Okay, then I'm going to address this one because we're going to cover it in a few moments. One of the things that's part of rapport, some of your homework you're reading were about predicates, is that you can begin to use your words. If you can notice people's like favorite words, favorite sayings, if you can notice their representational system, If you can tell that somebody is visual, then you can begin using visual words. You can speak to them in the way that they like to hear things. They're going to think that you're speaking their language. If you can pay attention to pacing of how quickly they speak, how slowly they speak, if you can see where they're breathing, you can maybe do some of that. There are things you can even do in, I've been coaching a performer who's been in a bunch of groups, and they will specifically do things so that they feel in community. Because normally you would like shake hands when you meet somebody in person, or you'd hug somebody, and you can do something ridiculous and fun like head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or some sort of like gesture or something where you both end up doing a similar thing with your physiology. That can work. Sometimes if other people have beverages in their scene, I will grab a beverage and put it in my scene, like, because you can set up the frame of what's similar about spaces. Sometimes you can do that. And matching tonality, we're going to talk a bit more about that. But if someone's speaking in their higher part of their range, you may do that. If somebody's very gestury with how they're communicating, you can begin to do more gestures than you might naturally. If someone's leaning in, you can lean in. If someone's leaning back, you can lean back. And the thing that will shift is you may or may not, depending on how your camera is positioned with another person, you may or may not feel in your body that you're in rapport, but you can do some of those things of noticing if somebody's leaning back and you leaned back, and then you begin, you're gesturing like them, you're speaking at their pace, and then you begin to lean forward and notice if they do as well. There's still some pacing and leading that you can do. And other things you can lean on are the standards of, sometimes people like compliments, sometimes people like to be asked about themselves. I have a friend who just can get anyone to sleep with her, and anyone of all of the genders. And I asked her once, like, wait, how does that work? And she said that people's favorite person is themselves. And if you get them feeling really, really good about themselves, they're going to associate that with you. And so that's more of like a psychological thing that's not as much about rapport as it is strategies that could work in virtual spaces. And then rapport may happen more naturally. Like if our bodies aren't as used to these Hollywood square boxes as other indicators of when rapport is happening. Do all of the things I've said make sense? Awesome. Okay. So, hey, emotions are a thing. Boom. Oops, go back. Boop. So what the heck are they for? So the thing about humans is we are emotional beings that have thoughts. I love bringing this up because there are a lot of people who highly value logical thinking and being rational. And it turns out that in an fMRI machine, the emotions and the decisions happen first, and then we make up the rationale for it. That's how our bodies work. There's tons of science on that. I don't have links or citations. We're just going to go with it's true because I said it. I can put it on Facebook and make it truer. Okay. Emotions carry information. That's what they're here for. So every emotion, whether we call them positive or negative, have important information for you. Boom, boom, boom. And they're designed to pass through us. The entire experience, should you have grown up somewhere where they encourage you to have emotions and do them well, they go through 45 to 90 seconds. That's a healthy standard expressed and felt emotion. We're super good at repressing, avoiding, stuffing down, and so or turning emotions into stories that we perseverate on for years. And then we're like, no, emotions will last decades. Not when you've learned to do them. Okay. So emotions can change your physiology and chemistry, which alters your tone, influences the words you choose, changes your physiology, the structure as it passes through. Also, because we are taught to not emotion in public, the first way that as tiny babies we do this is when we have an emotion, we cry about it, we express it, and our cry is the most painful thing to our parents. And when we're tiny, wiggly, sponge-like people, we can feel that, and that pain to our parents becomes pain to us, and we recognize that we're causing them pain, and so we start to stifle our crying by holding our breath. And then we discover and develop different tensions of like, if I smile too big, I'm going to get punched, so I can't smile. If I cry because somebody's teasing me, then they're going to do this other thing. So if I really hold my jaw really tight, we've developed different tensing strategies to not be as openly read by other people. So that is another thing, that sometimes we have emotions happening and a lot of people are picking up on our tension in our tonality, in our body language, and those sorts of things. So being as clean as we can possibly be in our emotions is a goal. Emotions that you experience are often not your own. Sometimes we have patterned responses that we learned from other people that also create a chemistry in us. Sometimes the emotions or the tension we're feeling is actually happening in the person, but we're our mirror neurons and the rapport that we're in, we are experiencing their stuff. Some people have that. And many of our responses become habits and or addictions. So when you do an emotion repeatedly and regularly from some stimulus, it becomes a mood and it becomes an attitude. And some of our moods and states are practiced, habitual, and addictive to us because we get used to them. So there are a lot of philosophies, for instance, The Soft Addiction Solution is a really fun book, which was one of the first to describe this thing that moods can be an addiction and that we can get out of that pattern. It's a fascinating, beautiful book. If you want to peek at it, it's got all sorts of other benefits of things that are habits. And I'm bringing this up. I imagine each of you maybe has therapists, maybe have your own philosophy around how emotions work. One of the things that's useful is to actually just practice noticing your own emotions as they flow throughout the day. And when we're in the structure of what we're talking about is we're going to have a challenging conversation with someone, and we need to be really good at noticing when we're getting charged, or if an emotion gets overwhelming and then we therefore don't have conversations that are important and we're avoiding them. That's also important to pay attention to. According to my therapist, noticing is a step. Noticing is a step, and you get to congratulate yourself. And what I teach my quit smoking clients specifically, because they are very sensitive people who have this strategy for dealing with emotions that they've trained their body into doing, I get them to slow down, recognize the emotion, and then know that that emotion showed up because it has information for you. And if it's poorly timed, you can say your emotion in your body, like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me this thing. I know it's an important message. I have to go into this meeting right now. I have to do this other thing. Would you be willing to come back and tell me the thing later? I will purposely sit down at the end of the night and I will pull out a journal, or I will sit again and you could just bring it up again so we can work this out and I get to learn the thing you're here to tell me. Getting in a different relationship with your body when it's trying to emotion you, it's trying to tap you on the shoulder, like this thing that happened, your anger is like, I have a boundary is crossed. Awesome. Oh, hey, we have hurt or sadness happening. The better we get at like noticing it and saying thank you. And if you're willing to even just, if you have the time to feel it through, that's awesome. Things you can do physiologically to help emotions move through is to do bouncing and shaking for a 2 minutes. Tina would tell you for the rest of the time how to bounce and shake. She's awesome at that. So she can train you how to do bouncing and shaking. So that's a strategy. I'm going to do this process with you that I call power knuckle. And I use this when I need to get on stage and I need to be my best self. I use this process when I'm going to make a phone call and I'm super not in the mood. When I find myself in a place where I'm not who I need to be for the thing I'm supposed to do, I use power knuckle. And the idea is based on Pavlov's dog, the idea that you can anchor and train your body to respond in a particular way. So Pavlov's dog, it's people think that there's a bell and there's steak. That'd be neat. It's actually meat paste and a tuning fork, which is less exciting. So Pavlov trained a dog to respond to the sound of this tuning fork, making a ding, and then he would feed the dog meat paste. It's probably really fatty and amazing, I'm sure. And at some point, he didn't have to feed the meat paste. He would just ring the tuning fork. The dog would salivate as though the food was there. So I'm going to do a technique so that you salivate every time someone rings a bell. And that's going to be really helpful for your communication, because people who drool publicly are far more effective at convincing people to go away. No, what we're going to do is we're going to use that same, see, this is where being on mute's not useful for me. Hearing laughter would be great, but I saw your beautiful faces. Well done.
I know. I thought about that, Adrian. I thought she's getting no feedback. So if you want us to unmute, we can.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think it was quiet enough. Yeah. Yeah. It's important to drool. Okay, so we're going to use the same philosophy and the same science that is based on. And instead, we're going to make a list of resourceful emotions. So we've got resourceful, not resourceful. My sense of this is, in the instance of having a challenging conversation, which emotions feel less useful to you in order for you to communicate yourself and your needs and whatever's going on, and which feel really, really good. So let's see if we can come out with at least 3 really, really, really cool. Like, if you could press a button and feel these things the next time you have to have a challenging conversation, what emotion do you want to have your body filled up with? What's
Joy. Joy.
Okay, we got joy. Groovy. Write some stuff down. Where's my thing? Anything else?
I always look for calmness. I don't know.
I was just going to say that too.
Joy, calm,
Patience.
patience.
Can you say something like confidence as an
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
Confidence, great. Happiness, yeah. Now, one of the things I want to think about, one of the ways this is most effective is that we want intense emotional experience, right? And when we think about things like calm and patience, sometimes what I want to do is install the thing that is really, really so powerful that afterwards you feel calm, or because calm itself isn't necessarily like a peak state. I mean, it's delightful. We like exhaustion is and you know, feistiness and anger. There's hostility. There's stuff where calm is a powerful and wonderful thing. What I'm wondering is, in your own life, are there things that have happened or places you've been or experiences that then lead to that calm? One that comes up for me is enchantment. It's part of that joy, enchantment, awe. And I think of this because of an Elizabeth Gilbert exercise where she has people write to themselves from their enchantment and what they were doing. What I'm going to do is, as we look at these, I'm going to have you recall specific times where you felt this experience. And what I am imagining, I really love sunsets, and the Southwest has the best sunsets ever. They're life altering. And that, I don't know, there's a euphoria for me is a really peak. I can think of times when I was feeling euphoria or enchantment or awe or that sort of thing. And those are really heightened experiences that after my body has that, I feel calm. Another thing is that may help with calm and joy, perhaps. I like to use hilarity. I like to use instances where I have nearly peed myself or snot my face up because I was laughing so much. That's like joy on steroids. The amount of pleasure from laughing my face off is taking that to a more extreme thing, because we're going to construct, we're going to try to find the most powerful like grenades of pleasure and positivity and usefulness to counteract times when you're in the extreme opposite space. Does this make sense? So what I want to do is find the most peak version that we can of these states. So I'm agreeing with you that calm is amazing, and I'm curious whether there's, you know, like awe, delight, whatever that, what's the biggest version that results in calm? Who has a magical word for that?
I'd like to inspire or have people come away with like a aha moment.
Epiphany?
Epiphany. Yes, that's the word. Thank you. Yes.
Now, my curiosity, if we do epiphany, does that, for each person, does that sort of include a kind of curiosity? Does that include, is there some sort of, as I'm constructing this epiphany thing is a thing that happens after something else.
Right.
My curiosity, I say curiosity because I love curiosity. There's a thing that's close to confidence, but it's totally different. And maybe it's close to knowing, where each one of you, I imagine, has experienced a kind of trust or faith that things would work out, and you could hold that in yourselves. And then what would happen is you would stay in a situation, and then an aha could happen after that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's intuition. I don't know if that's trust or faith.
Yeah, inspiration too. I want to inspire with my
I'm going to
words.
say inspired.
I think for me, it's belief. Like I have to fully believe something to have that trust that I can know I can get to the other side.
Great. So if you have a belief and if you have confidence, do those two things lead a person to experience patience?
Not necessarily. I have belief and confidence, and I'm highly impatient. So.
Sweet. Sweet.
Just saying, that's my goal.
Patience might be the result of a kind of mama bear, like a big, like bigger, more expanded self. Humans who have endless amounts of patience, it's sort of this like loving, caring, bigger than everything energy. Is that an emotion?
See, to me, I feel like patience is a muscle and an action.
Right.
Not a move. It's something I personally, as a result of this journaling and stuff, and am trying to start practicing.
Sure. Yeah.
I've made it a tangible thing that I do in my head when I'm trying to be patient, but I don't think it's
Yeah. And what's great, Barbara, is I am also not likely to use the word patience. I am attempting to find a peak emotional state. So I'm agreeing with you. And I'm not trying to poo someone's word of patience, because I know that that's an important result. The ability to be patient. Ability to be patient.
And it's not absolute. I mean, I can experience a kind of patience when all kinds of emotions are thing with my granddaughter that I maybe didn't with my children. That don't with my husband.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm leaning more towards something about curiosity, but some instance where, and more of that like belief faith thing. So I've got inspired, confident, joy, and for the sake of joy, can we put hilarity in there, like hilariousness? Because I think that's pretty big. Confidence is really, really great. I think that if your body flooded currently with joy and confidence and you felt inspired, might you also feel calm afterwards?
Safe, safe.
Calm and safe. Yeah. Okay, great. So here's the deal. If I were doing this with each of you individually, we would pick your favorite word because it's going to mean more to you. In this instance, I'm going to do hilarity. And if you need to do like joy, bliss, I'm going to talk about, hilarity that you like, and I'm thinking of like you're laughing your face off. It's the most ridiculously wonderful, full body, however you laugh uncontrollably. I'm going to do confidence. I'm going to do inspired, and I'm going to do belief, but I'm also going to say faith just in case. And here's the deal. What we're going to do is, and I think I don't know if we're going to need you all to like reposition your cameras slightly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you remember a time. Here's the deal. I'm hoping that you've all felt hilarity and confidence and inspired and had that belief, that knowing, that faith before. We're banking on the fact that you could potentially think of specific instances where you felt these particular emotions. And here's the deal. We're just going to borrow the awesomeness from all of that, and we're going to stick it in your knuckle. And so here's how this is going to go. I'm going to ask you a time. Can you remember a time when you felt, right now I'm going to just say banana. So can you remember a time when you felt banana, a specific time? And then you're going to close your eyes and think of remember back to that specific time when you felt banana. And you're going to see through your own eyes, you're going to hear what you heard, see what you saw, feel what you felt when you felt banana. At the same time, the idea is you're going to notice the emotion rise in you. And the deal with building your own anchor is you're going to touch your knuckle. And the more consistently in the same place you can touch your knuckle with the same sort of pressure, the better. You can't be too early. So can you remember a time when you felt banana? As you feel the emotion come up, you touch your knuckle and your emotion will rise. And then you lift your finger from your knuckle as it begins to fall. You want to catch the peak of it, but you don't want to catch and install the drop. Okay. You just want to like grab the good stuff. So you can't be too early, but you can be too late. So the idea is, can you remember a time when you felt banana, a specific time? You're gonna close your eyes and like, oh, I feel the feeling coming up. Oh, banana. I feel banana. I'm touching my knuckle. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking it, I could see it. Oh, super. Yeah. And I'm holding it and I was like, and now it's about to dissipate. So I lift my finger. And the idea is that I guess what I'm going to key off of is I'm going to trust that each one of you can touch your knuckle and lift your finger up because you're going to notice your own emotions come into your body. And then your key to me, what I'm going to pay attention to is whether your eyes are open again. And I'm going to ask you, can you remember another time when you felt banana, a specific time? And you're going to touch your knuckles. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt, feeling banana. And then when you start to feel it dissipate, now some emotions are funny. They will like build, and then they'll build some more. Oh my gosh, and they'll build some even more. And then they will dissipate. You actually want to pay attention to whether it builds even higher, okay? Because you want all that, it's super juicy. The other thing is when I'm talking about visualizing yourself there through your own eyes, I also mean sounds, I also mean smells, I also mean the way the air felt, like a visualization. Many of you said that you were visual. Visualizing could be gray blobs of sensation of awesomeness. It doesn't have to look like a total movie, but if you can make it vivid like a movie and watch it like a movie, that can make it real and more enticing to you and your body will respond. Does this make sense? So whatever you can do to make it more clear for yourselves, we're going to do it. So I'm going to do 3 instances of each word. We've got hilarity, confidence, inspired, belief, and faith. Those are the ones we're gonna do like 3 instances of each. So if you can think of 3 specific instances, then you're gonna install them all together. If you're like, oh, I can't think of it, just pause and wait till we get to the next one. And we're gonna check in. Do these instructions, are they clear enough for everyone?
Mhm.
Okay, so here's the deal. I am not installing banana necessarily, or am I? It's already in there. Okay, sorry. I'm just being, that's hypnotist jokes. So here we go. If you've got your knuckle ready, the thing I want to reiterate is that you want to be very specific with your touch. So if you've got extra fingers, I can't see you all, but if you've got extra fingers dangling, you don't need to we don't want to touch these other things. You want to be very specific and give yourself the kind of space that when your eyes are closed, you can still come back and reach your knuckle. Groovy? Okay, I'm going to start with confidence. Okay, ready? Can you remember a time when you felt confident? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt feeling confident. And when you finish, go ahead and open your eyes. Okay, can you remember another time when you felt confident, a specific time? As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt feeling confident. Okay. Can you remember another time when you felt confident? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt feeling confident. All right. Well done. Can you remember a time when you felt inspired? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt feeling inspired. Can you remember another time when you felt inspired? As you go back to that time, see what you saw, feel what you felt, hear what you heard when you felt inspired. Can you remember a time when you were filled with hilarity? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, say what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt, feeling hilarity. Can you remember another time when you felt hilarity? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt, feeling hilarity. Awesome. All right. Can you remember a time when you were just filled with congruent belief and faith? A specific time. As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt, feeling that deep belief and faith. Can you remember another time when you felt deeply congruent, unshakable belief or faith? As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt, feeling unshakable belief. All right, and when you're ready, go ahead and come back. Okay, so just like shake out some arms and hands, faces, should you need to. Drink the things that need drinking. Double checking. Is anybody smelling popcorn right now? No? No? No popcorn? Cool. Okay, so when you're ready, not just now, I mean, in a moment, when I say in a moment, what I want you to do is I want you to touch your knuckle and I want you to just notice what you notice. So on a count of 4, for the sake of fun, 1, 2, 3, 4, touch your knuckle. Okay, whoever wants to audibly say so, what did you experience just now?
So that was awesome. Yeah, I like that an awful lot. I mean, I realized like when the congruity between heart and mind, that one was like tapping into spiritual superpower.
Nice. Yeah.
That
So
was
just to
like,
check, everyone felt something? Hands if you've got it. Okay. So I want you to know that that's your knuckle. You get to touch it as much as you want to. I am not the boss of how often you touch your knuckle. Here's another fun thing. Since you spent the whole time touching your own knuckle and noticing your own emotions rise and fall, and effectively giving yourself an experience that you can feel, that means that any other positive and amazing emotion that you want to put in there, write it down and fill it up and stack it in. We just did some instances, but maybe you have a bunch of joy-filled experiences that you can go recall in your mind and touch your own knuckle and put more emotions in that. Cool? The other thing is that while you're experiencing awesomeness, the best time to install resourceful states into a part of your body is, say you're at a family gathering 17 years from now, and it's amazing. No, sooner. Okay. There's some joy-filled event happening and it's delightful, and you're looking around and that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm having nostalgia for right now because it's so amazing. Touch your knuckle, put it in there. If you did something amazing or showed up really, really well for yourself, or I don't know, you just sang the crap out of a song and it felt good, touch your knuckle. You can store these things in the moment. You're standing and you're looking at a beautiful sunset or a sight, or some kid is being wiggly and ridiculous and it's too fun, or a dog, and it's so much joy. Touch your knuckle while you're experiencing the joy. Build it up. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because then when you need to, you can then touch your knuckle during challenging moments to get more access to something. Now, we're going to utilize this now. Each and every one of you probably has an emotion that you experience when you're trying to have a conversation that's not that resourceful. And you probably have a specific one. I don't need you to tell me or tell everyone what it is. What I need you to do, though, right now, is find the knuckle next to the knuckle where you put all your good stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you recall one specific instance, just one, and I mean this, just one specific instance of an emotional state that you sometimes feel, experience, or get into during times when you wish you had this other thing, right? Some people, that's a level of shyness. Some people, that's a level of overwhelmed by your own states. And so you can't speak. Some people aren't able to speak when they have emotions. So pick your favorite, least favorite thing that is an emotion that gets in the way of you being able to communicate or have challenging conversations. And, you know, whatever yours is, I think you know yourself really well. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say, can you remember a time when you have an unresourceful emotion? And you're going to insert the one you have. And you're going to install it on the knuckle next to yours just one time. Ready? Okay. Can you think of a time when you have that unresourceful emotion, specific time? As you go back to that time now, see what you saw, feel what you felt, and hear what you heard, feeling that unresourceful emotion. Okay. Now, go ahead and wiggle out, roll your shoulders. Still no popcorn? Just checking in. Okay, just sometimes no one smells popcorn. So here's what we're going to do. Now you have two knuckles with different stored emotions in it. You're going to take 2 fingers, not just yet. You're going to take 2 fingers and you're going to press both of these stored anchors. Now, what you experience may be different, but you will experience both of them firing initially at the same time. Your resource anchor and this unresourceful state. At some point, the more powerful positive one is going to start winning over. The moment that you notice sensationally, however you notice, it could be energy, it could be sensation, it could be feeling, however you notice that the unresourceful one is diminishing, what you're going to do, you're going to fire both of them at the same time. The moment you notice the unresourceful one is diminishing, you're going to lift your finger off of that one, continue holding your power knuckle until all that you can feel is all of those emotions. Double checking for clarity that this makes sense to everybody. Okay. Did Eve, was that a no? This doesn't make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What's neat is you did install that feeling in a different knuckle, right?
Right. I did.
Awesome. Great. Good. So you're going to take 2 fingers. I put my unresourceful one on my middle knuckle, and my power one is my ring finger, my pointer finger knuckle. So I'm going to touch both of them at the same time. And then they're going to both, I'm going to feel and experience both at the same time when I touch them both. And at some point, how it happens in your body, only you will feel. For me, when I press it, I feel this weird sort of mixed state, and it seems like they're battling and duking it out. And at some point, I'm going to say negative now, the negative one starts to dissipate, and the other one, I feel the other one stronger than the negative one. And the moment I feel the negative one like losing the battle, I will lift my finger. Here's my finger bandaged off of the one that had the unresourceful. I will still hold on to the resourceful one, which I call power knuckle, and let it just like hang out and do its like, you know, celebratory, I beat your ass, dance around the ring in my body. And then I'm just going to lift it up. Does it make a different level of sense? Okay, cool. Whenever you are ready, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna press both knuckles. You're gonna have your whole experience. And then when you are done, you're just gonna do your celebratory, like, I beat it. And that's how I know that you're done. Does that make sense? Like pumping your fist in the air? Great. Okay, ready? Whenever you're ready, go ahead and press both knuckles. Right on. Celebratory, everybody did it. Unless, I'm sorry, Barbara, were you there? Okay, cool. Yay. Okay, so here's what your noticer, each one of you has a really, really good noticer, noticing your favorite cars, you notice people's clothing that you like, favorite colors, all that sort of thing. So your noticer, I want you to activate it now, give it a job of noticing the times when that emotion used to show up and you're finding yourself having a different response automatically without even having to touch your knuckle. Because what that technique, that second half of that technique taught your body is what to do inside when you're feeling that. Does that make sense? Now, if you need more jolt, you can always just also touch your knuckle if you want an extra boost. And I do encourage you to go put more amazing, like peak states, favorite moments in life into your knuckle, making it even more powerful. Groovy? The other thing that you can do is when I press my knuckle, I am often somewhere where I can see a wide expanse of sky, and I will touch my knuckle and then go into Hakalau, go into peripheral vision to make it an even better, more expanded experience. You can combine two of the things I've taught you. Groovy. Okay, so I figured that doing that would be more useful than teaching you how to pay attention to your emotions and mindfulness and that sort of thing. More fun than a fun lecture about mindfulness. Yay? Okay. This then, timing wise, is where I wanted to do. Oh, look at how fun that slide is. I'm sorry we missed that, except for it's happening now. Yes, the most powerful Avenger, Captain Marvel. Okay, so I'm actually going to put a 1 minute wiggle should you need it now, because that's sort of timing wise where we are. So ready? 1 minute wiggle. And you can get up if you have to go potty, whatever you need. Actually, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Good times. Everyone needed to know. What's great about being able to install your own remembered states is that you get to pace it however you want to.
What was also interesting is I was very aware of not just the memories and the feelings, but physiologically what was going on, like heightened breathing, faster heart rate, all that kind of stuff, and almost hyper aware of that stuff. It was really interesting.
Isn't that cool? Yeah,
Yeah.
the body remembers all of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. Sometimes, now they're not as powerful, but if there's something that you want to experience that you haven't, you can do what's called a constructed anchor, wherein you make a guess, because there are people who just have never felt confident, but they have sweeping guesses about what that must be like, right? And it was like, oh, it probably has like these other emotions that I have felt, and and you can sort of mix something together to create an emotion that you would like to experience. And part of the power of, so in the moment is the most powerful thing you can anchor. Recalled state of something with high intensity is the next. And then below that is like inventing something. Now, if you invent something, since it's not something your body has experienced a lot, you need to, I'm going to say, stack the anchor a lot. That means do a bunch of iterations of it. Whereas when we were talking about, hey, I'd really love to feel calm, I was looking for something like hilarity, because when you're like almost peeing yourself laughing, and then afterwards you just feel pretty damn calm. It might take 20 instances of trying to anchor calm, and it takes 1 or 2 instances of that level of joy to still get your result. Does this make sense? And me walking through that is part of the way you can think about it. It's like, okay, do I want to do this a bunch, or what is something that gets me the result that I'm thinking of? And you get to come through your own life experience to find those. Boom. Okay. So we're moving on to how change happens. And I'm looking at the time and making a decision. Okay, I can make it faster than that. I'm trying to decide, and maybe we can decide together. Theoretically, I have a 10-minute experiential thing so that you can feel the experience of change. And then we're going to talk about how it happened. Or I can talk about how change happens and then move into language patterns and skip the experiential. I like doing the experiential because I'm weird and I can give you a tool that you can use in the future. And also I think this tool is kind of fun and you can do it with other people. So each one of you, you're all muted. You don't need to be if you don't want to be. Something about that was I want the first one.
Option 1 sounded good.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to like bank on like they're paying for the weird. They want the weird, the thing they can't get somewhere else. I could send them the goddamn slides, you know. That's what the voice says. It's a scratchy curmudgeon on my shoulder. So each one of you, I'm hoping, has in mind a challenge, a struggle, a problem that's going on in your life that you would like to be better right now. Am I correct? Okay, cool. And you also have something to write on, write with and write on. Perfect. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do kind of a guided journaling. I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to spend some time focusing on that problem. And what I want you to do is, I think we're good. I'll explain it as we go. So what I want you to do is begin writing about that problem. What is the problem? Start with that. What is the problem? How much does this thing suck? And then like all of the ways that it's awful. What do you feel? What aren't you able to do that's really frustrating? I don't know which person. I don't have participants up for the typing person. Hold on.
Sorry.
It's
I'll
okay.
get myself.
I know
Okay.
Francine.
I think through my fingers. It's just the way it works.
Perfect. Okay. 1 second. I got you. All right. And as you're writing about this, really, just as much as you felt that unresourceful emotion, just allow yourself to drop deep in your body right now, where you're sitting, in just how much this is frustrating and awful and you're dreading it and what you're not able to do and where you feel stuck. Feel it, write it down for yourself. Okay, now if you happen to have enough of a description on the page of how frustrating and awful the challenge you're facing is, what I want you to do is really look at that page. And what I want you to do is in your seat right now, just feel all of the gross, like the depth. The more that you allow yourself to feel the problem, you don't have to get over it now. Feel the problem, sink it, its depth, its heaviness, whatever it feels in your body, feel it in your body. And what I want you to do is I want you to store it in your body in the chair. And the moment that you've locked that sensation and feeling in yourself, in your chair, once you've completed making sure that you're feeling in your body all of the emotions and then left it there in the chair, I want you to get up from your chair and stand a couple feet away. I know that's weird, but does that make sense? Okay. All right, well done. Now, wherever you are, go ahead, stretch out your body. Just bend, wiggle, stretch. Now, we just did a power knuckle. So I know that you have memories, you can touch your power knuckle, you have memories of being really creative and resourceful and ingenious. Like you've come up with the best ideas. Like if your friend was having trouble, you could do that. You could be like, oh my God, I can see everything. So I want you to go ahead and remember a time when you were super creative and resourceful and amazing, and just sort of like allow yourself to feel that in your body right now. Just pleasure-filled, inspired. Yeah. Go ahead and recall some of your best moments. And now that you're feeling more inspired, you have a friend who does need your help. That's the you that's in the chair. And I want you to look, when you're ready, look back at the you in your chair. And I want you to notice something that you notice now that you didn't when you were in the chair. What would you say to the you that's in the chair? What are they not seeing? What would they need to hear? As you look back at the you with the problem in the chair, what do you know now that they didn't know? And once you have a clear sense of what that is, go ahead and now write that down in your journal. Just thank your you that stayed there in the chair for coming, and they can get up, or you can just sit on them, whatever works best. Okay. All right. So you can all unmute now. And so who got a little bit of insight, clarity, new idea? Anyone? Some people not so much. Okay, great. And no, sometimes that happens. So what I literally did was a kinesthetic perspective shift. The idea, there's that Leonard Cohen song, "The Crack That Lets the Light Through." So a lot of times change needs to include new knowledge, a shift in perspective, a shift in how you're looking at the problem. What I had to do was associate to two different feeling states and then move to a different place in the room. Now, we're doing this as a group and not in person. Francine, perhaps if we were in person and I could specifically pay attention to you and guide you, you may have had a different visceral experience. I don't know. And so we do have some instances of having a shift in perspective and new ideas and changes in quite a few of you, yeah? And there could be a different technique for that particular. I also don't know what specific problem, Francine, that you're writing about or talking about. It's possible that this little fun thing is the wrong tool for that specific thing. So this is, I silently make it a guess, right? Okay, so here's what's fun. There is kind of an anatomy of breakthrough and change. So, and I'm going to show you different, like quickly as possible, a couple different models of change. So one model for breakthrough and change is step one, you notice you're stuck. Step two, you decide where you want to be instead. Step three, you release the barriers or baggage or figure out what's keeping you where you are or how you got there, what you need to do to get out of there. Somewhere in there, there's like learning, resources, new perspectives. That's in step three. Then you take some sort of action or you make a new choice, figuring out what would it take, who would I need to be, what would I do if I was the kind of person who could get the thing I want. You do that. And then once you've got some momentum moving, you need to maintain focus, maintain your state, and maintain your mindset to stay unstuck and keep moving. Does that sort of seem like an arc? Because you all wrote about times you changed your life before. Were these kind of the steps that you took? I don't actually know where the slide is. That's fun. Okay, great. So here's an anatomy of a therapeutic process. We have done this. So the last technique was associating to the pain. We sat in our seat and we squished it there and we froze it there and we really, really felt it and stuck it in the seat. We disassociated from the page. We got the fuck out of the chair and we went to somewhere else. And then we associated to resources. We got into more resourceful states. We recalled times when we were creative and amazing and felt good. And then we looked back at the thing and we were able to see that situation a different way. From that position, we have now new knowledge, new resources, and we did not test in future pace. What test in future pace means is in that moment where you're sitting there and you think to yourself, the next time I find myself in this situation, here's what I'm going to do. And then you visualize it in your head, seeing yourself make new choices in the situation that you're in. Here's another change that some of us might be familiar with, how to sell people something. This is, if you get on a phone call with a coach, they're going to have you talk about the problem. They're going to have you talk about how that problem has kept you from the things that you want in your life. Even if they're selling you a refrigerator, this is probably part of some of it. What would happen if you don't make the change? What do you want instead? How important is it for you to have the thing that you want? How good would your life feel if you had the thing that you want? Well, if I told you that I can help you make your problem go away and help you achieve the life that you described that you want, would that be of interest to you or not? We've been through this sales process, right? It gets people to like spin around and associate and think of things and like, oh, it's really important to me. I'm paying you all of the money. Awesome. So here's some important notes about change. So for anybody to change their minds, and maybe maybe you notice this about your life, is there has to be emotional significance or emotional relevance to you. Like if you're going to attempt to, we were talking 2 weeks ago about how everybody has their own model of the world and their own values and beliefs. If you're attempting to change someone else's mind, you're not going to be able to unless you're in rapport, unless you understand their model of the world, and unless you are somehow finding ways to get them what they want. And you're presenting something that they give a crap about. Emotional relevance and emotional significance. It's also important to know whether they are motivated toward something or away from something. If there are people who are just really inspired by achieving happiness and moving towards something, or there's some people who just don't want pain. So there's people who are pleasure motivated, people who are pain motivated. If you know somebody who's pain motivated and you talk to them about their pain and how they care about it and what their pain is keeping them from doing, they're more inclined to hear your solutions, suggestions about it. If somebody's more pleasure oriented, then you can talk about all of the great things that they're going to be able to do and feel that, you know, this is all making sense, right? Okay. Now there is, I'm going to change which screen I'm sharing. I'm excited because I am a dork. I'm excited to show you this. It's math. Yay, math. It's a dream. We knew the moment was coming. No, so there's a questioning. This is also a process of change. This is a problem-solving question strategy called Cartesian coordinates. And I love the completely made up story that there was once a collection, because I don't know the name, of nuns in Cartesia, Italy. And they were so well known for their ability to solve people's problems that people would come from all over the world to Cartesia. And they would sit with them and they would present their problems. And the nuns would ask just 4 simple questions. It's good because it's made up, but it's still good. So when somebody has a problem, you can ask them, so what would happen if you did make that change? What would happen if you didn't make that change? What wouldn't happen if you did make that change? What wouldn't happen if you didn't? When we're talking about getting someone to move a picture in their brain, because what happens with people when they have a problem, there's a way that they're feeling it. There's a pattern of how they think about it. The idea is you're going to get them to take on and make a new picture in their head. So it says up here, Cartesian coordinates are a fun set of questions that help people find a new perspective, a different perspective than they are currently holding. People tend to hold their problems in rigid structures in their mind. And when you get them to bend and stretch the boundaries and structure of their problems, sometimes those problems disappear. So cleverly, you can install these 4 questions, and then they've got fun mathy names. Love it. Theorem, converse, non-mirror image reverse and inverse, and they've got wavy symbols and stuff. The deal is you can just, if that's your, if that turns you on, get in it. Like there's fun things in Google World to look more into that. But the idea is it's just those 4 questions at the bottom. And even sometimes just asking 2 of them to someone presenting a way that they're thinking about it is going to get them thinking about it in a new way. Also asking yourself that if you find, oh, I'm stuck, I don't have an idea, and you want to present a potential solution, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I didn't do that? What wouldn't happen if I did? What wouldn't happen if I didn't? And you can just write this stuff down. So that one is in. Let's say, bam, bam. Did that early. Okay. So I've got 30 minutes of our agreed upon time. I do also know that I have that 1 hour makeup. So the 1 hour is set up for questions and real life problems, troubleshooting, that sort of thing. I can also stick something that was in today in that for teachables. I think I want to go and send you an email about useful beliefs about communication, which you're not seeing, which is super exciting because I'm still sharing Cartesian coordinates. Who's in charge here? Who's the boss of what's happening? Okay. Okay, so we had useful beliefs for these are somewhat great. So we've already talked about how everybody's reality is constructed, unique and valid. They're all their own islands. We've covered that one. The first one on here is the map is not the territory. That words don't mean anything people do. One quick way to demonstrate this is, now I want you each to type in the chat, but don't press enter until I say. We're all capable of that. We can type several words, but not press enter till I say. I want you each to type 5 words. Sex equals, and then type 5 words that sex equals. Does that make sense? Like 5 words that when you think sex, these 5 words, that is what sex is to you. You type the 5 words. And I cannot see Julie, but that's okay. I imagine if Julie hears me, we can all put this in at the same time.
Oops.
Oh, sorry, I hit enter. I meant to hit return.
It's okay. Type all 5 words together this next time. And they can be commas. Commas are great. Use commas because shift space is hard. So everybody almost got 5? Raise your hand when you've typed at least the 5. Okay. 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 All right.
I may have missed something in the explanation, but I'm going to play along anyway.
I love it. Yes.
And we're saying we're doing this to everyone. Is that in the chat?
Right.
Okay.
There are many ways to do this. This is the fastest way I could think of. Okay. Does everybody have their 5 words? Okay. Ready, set, press enter. Okie dokie. So we've got pleasure, release, calm, love, intimacy, bliss, connection, playfulness, connection, immersion, joy, fun, connection, intimacy, vulnerability. So cool. So we've got some people who have connection. So here's okay. So if there were 2 of you that were in a relationship together, and as you're meeting on your early dates, you're saying, oh, sex is really important to me. And the other one's like, yeah, sex is really important to me too. And so let's say it's like Eve's like thinking when she says sex, it's release, pleasure, calm, love, and intimacy. And then Francine wants closeness, release, intimacy, relaxation, and love. And Francine is lacking that relaxation. As they do whatever they do, relaxation isn't there. And calm, there's lots of calm. I don't know, they're similar, right? I imagine there are some people who have, I don't know, I think when I did this, I wrote like sweaty, sticky, smelly, fucking, and some other thing. So obviously my version of sex equals would be different. Any one of us would try to get together with me, and then I'd be like, so there's plenty of calm. Where's the sticky and the fucking and the smells? And we agreed that we were wanting and prioritizing sex, right? So I don't see any one of those that is exactly the same as another person, right? And sex is a fun, playful thing to make, but all other words, peace, war, what each one of you thinks war equals, what each one of you thinks peace equals, which each one of you, like, your words have a different internal representation than someone else's words. And getting really clear when people say important, here's one, marriage. Apparently everybody says the words, but whoa, a lot of people have very different ideas about what marriage is, right? One person's marriage and the other person's marriage, and even like a pair's marriage, very different from another. What that means, that equals obedience, freedom, growth, who knows? But it's pretty important to get clarity. Like, the map is not the territory. It means that words don't mean anything inherently. You can go to the dictionary, but that's not what it's going to mean to the person that you're communicating with. And so the cool news is sometimes you can just ask them. When they use a word, a trigger word that seems like everybody should be agreeing on what it means, and it's vastly different for everyone, you can just get clarity, understand what it means for the other person. That's a very important thing. The other thing is the meaning of the communication is the response you get. Super important. If you think you've communicated something clearly and you're getting a weird response, you recognize that, well, number 5, I'm skipping. There's no failure, only feedback. And you get to try again to communicate something differently and get a new response. Resistance is often just a sign of a lack of rapport. So if you're noticing disconnection, start doing what you need to get into rapport again, to get more responsiveness. And the law of requisite variety is pretty fun. It's that the person with the most flexibility controls the system or controls the communication. That's the person who has the most behavioral flexibility is the one who is most in control of this situation. Now, I'm going to share something you've probably experienced. Maybe your parents are still alive. Your parents have different values than you do and different skill sets, probably aren't going to fun growth events. And you probably have been to therapy and fun growth events, and you have more communication and behavioral flexibility. Sadly, I also have parents who aren't doing these sorts of things because it wasn't valued. And some parents do. And we have more tools, which means we have more resilience and flexibility in the ways that we can communicate, which includes not talking to our parents, by the way. So I'm just bringing this up because oftentimes parents then lose their faculty and ability to remember. And we're the ones who are the more agile, which means that we're in control of who we're being. And the next one is cause and effect. You are responsible for your communication and therefore your results. We'd love for other humans to just do what we want them to do at all times and read our minds, but they're not getting a training like this usually. And so our ability to be flexible and take responsibility for what we're seeing or not having happen is part of what we're learning here. Boom. Okay. I'm going to skip to, skip this entire thing. Because that feels right. Okay, so in our handout, boom, building on this is my favorite page. How do I make it? So we're just going to look at voice and syntax, page 10 in the manual. This is about the flexibility of the tonality that you're using when you communicate. And culture is shifting. So it's possible that some of these will change in 20 years from now. I'm bringing it up because So in addition to physiology, vocal tone is important in communicating congruence and meaning in your communication. The arrows indicate tone and voice used in a sentence. Now, the phrase is set up that if your intonation goes up at the end, it's a question. If your tonality is straight, it's a statement. And then when it goes down, it's a command at the end. So an example would be, are you understanding this? It's going up at the end. And if I say it, are you understanding this? Do you notice in your body any difference between the two? Hearing them. There's also, are you understanding this? Kind of flat, different. A lot of people use upspeak without intention. So there are a lot of young people that always go up at the end of what they're saying. Do you know some people who tend to talk like this and you just don't understand what they're saying? And I went to the grocery store and then I did the other thing. And often if that person is in front of the room, they're not necessarily commanding the same level of respect because they're like, I don't think they know what they're talking about because I don't know, right? People that figure out how to use command tone and end, dropping at the end, oftentimes can ask questions. Is this something you understand? And it lands differently and you get a different response than even using question tone to ask questions. Now, people have played around with this and paying attention to how they're communicating tonality wise and have completely altered. They video themselves doing a speech and then they notice whether they've gone up at the end or down at the end and they try it a different way. They repeat different lines to see how it feels in their body to say it and how people respond to what they're saying. And a lot of people have completely changed their pay scale, walking into rooms and making sure that they're talking mostly in statement and command tone when they're in the front of the room or they're asking for the raise or they're trying to get compliance from someone. And I'm pointing it out because it's so easy to remember to do. And we're talking about that other 25% of communication. Now, it's effective in our current culture. Who knows how influential Gen Z's upspeak will end up being for our future now. There are other cultures, Japanese, for instance, where it's all uptone, completely different. And a lot of people in business context have taken on Americanisms, like the United Statesisms. I saw a question, Barbara. Yeah.
So I almost always speak in statements.
Great.
But when I say to someone, do you understand?
Yes.
That is a reprimand. That is not like, that is, are we clear?
Are you sure it's a reprimand?
If I'm saying it to my staff, because I don't ever get angry, I don't ever yell, I don't raise my voice. From me, it's a reprimand.
Okay.
And so I hear it that way from other people.
Okay, sure.
So I'm just wondering if that's something that's just unique to me, or is it, I don't know.
Well, I wonder, what is the response you're getting from your people? In your case, it may be beneficial for you to use question tone the next time you use a question, and then wonder if you are in a reprimanding place and you want them to feel willing in a different way to do the thing you're asking them to do, utilizing question tone and going up at the end could change the dynamic, unless you actually want them to feel reprimanded.
Kind of want them to feel reprimanded if I do that. If I go there,
yeah. No, so
if I go there, we're coming to clarity, and I'm trying to come to clarity in a way that doesn't humiliate you.
Right.
But I want you to understand.
Yes. Is it okay for you to be that powerful
Yes.
when you talk to
I
people.
don't mind. They might mind, but I
Yeah.
get that I'm intimidating. I get feedback that I'm intimidating, and I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah. Also, there are potentially instances where you don't want to, you want to have the flexibility of utilizing it to get the result you want.
Yeah.
Now, in other instances where people use a command tone for you and you feel reprimanded, it could be interesting to ask them whether that was their intention.
Okay.
Because they may potentially just
Now,
alter.
I've never been aware of it, so now I have to listen for it and see.
Yes. Well, the other thing is here, when I was demonstrating, did you all have a body response to how the statements and questions felt?
I can't even be in rapport with somebody that does that. It
Which
annoys
that?
me to no
It goes
end.
up.
The
Oh,
question.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
So
I'm
there's
like,
a body.
"And we're done. Thank you so much. Bygones. Love you, mean it." No. Mm-mm.
There's a body sensation in the difference. Often there's a body sensation in your own body as you're saying them differently. One of the things that could be interesting is think about a conversation that you have regularly enough and practice changing the phrases that you say with these. Again, this is about auditory. It's going to be even easier to do this on just a phone call. If we're talking, Barbara, about figuring out how to practice certain aspects of our, so if you're having challenges doing rapport and visual virtual, go to a phone call and pay attention to whether you can get rapport using tonality. And then you've stripped down all the distracting extra stuff and the cats and the dumb crap. And now you only have what you can hear and what you can sense in your body as you change your strategies and what you hear in another person, right? Okay, I'm going to move to my favorite strategy. And then other things, I will probably construct something. I'm going to construct something and send it in an email, which may include a video, so you can learn some of the other stuff that's on these pages. This is my favorite effing strategy of all. It's called the agreement frame. This is literally how to have agreements and maintain rapport. So the agreement frame is one of the most powerful, useful, and overlooked tool in the toolbox. This is the script for having disagreements while maintaining rapport. Great, I just said that. Thanks, Adrienne, from the past, for writing that down. So, okay. So if you agree with people, say you agree, and then say, and I agree. And if you have a different opinion, you get to pick one of these next two. I appreciate and, or I respect and. One of the things, and I'm going to go over this again, different examples. One of the things you want to avoid is using the phrase I understand. Who's got parents who are divorced, perhaps? Anybody? Okay, great. So Mary, I have my parents are divorced too. I totally understand what you went through. How does that feel to hear me say that?
Feels a little flat. Doesn't feel sincere.
Groovy. What does everybody else feel when I said that?
Well, there's no way you can understand her experience. You haven't gotten to know her yet.
Fuck yes, Barbara, representing. Thank you. The fuck do I know about what Mary went through?
Yeah, distant, I was saying.
Distant, flat, insincere. You don't know. You don't know.
Patronizing, really.
Right? Okay, let me try this other thing. Okay, so wow, that moment. So Mary, you know, my parents are divorced too. I appreciate that it's possible that we experienced it differently. There may be some similarities between our experiences because divorce is really challenging depending on, you know, when it happened in your life. I just wanted you to know that we have that in common. I said more words.
You said a lot more words, and it sounded like even though we've been through the same experience and we haven't experienced what it was like for each other, it felt like more of a connection, and it felt a whole lot more sincere.
Yeah. And I started it like I didn't keep going with the first one because I tanked it in the first words. Like the openness for what I was going to say next existed because I appreciate that, or I respect that may have been difficult for you. The deal is I appreciate, because if you don't, oftentimes, let's just face it, we brought me in because we are trying to talk to people who have opinions we don't respect at all, right? So the most powerful thing on this page is I appreciate. Now, what do you appreciate? Gosh, sometimes you're going to need to find something and make it specific. So somebody tells you about their experience and their beliefs and where they come from. And you say, you know, I really appreciate that you've had a life experience that included these things. And I can see where that belief comes from. And here's some of my experience and what I've noticed. Like starting with I appreciate and then making specific the things that you do appreciate about what someone's saying. Now, appreciate can repeat, like I can see, you know, the therapy talk of like, okay, so you're feeling blah and you said blah, which can be
What do you
heavy.
mean by that smile?
So this avoid using I understand. And then I titled this section, watch your butts, because butts are really effective at what they're good at doing. Oh, great. So when you have a but in a sentence, it negates everything that you said before. And that's why we use the word and for things. I appreciate that you la 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 la. I appreciate that you had a different experience with your divorced parents, but I also have divorced parents and I feel these things. Just sort of like brushed out everything. I appreciate what you experienced with your parents, and I too had things that happened. Both of those get to exist now. Sometimes I'm clever enough to show you how to utilize a really good but. If I have said something that's reprimanding and I want them to pay attention to the next thing I say, a roommate came in and I forgot to warn them that I was doing this thing until the last minute. I was like, well, let's pretend that person just came in and was really crappy about it. It's like, I think it's really lame the way that you just explained that to me, but I do appreciate that you let me know. That's me sort of forcing a way to utilize a good but. There are times when you want to negate the first thing you said, especially when you're going to say something really important that follows it. So sometimes you can say a whole bunch of things, and then there's a command tone, because the thing at the end is the most important thing you want to say. And you put a but in there so that the last thing, it's like a delete button for everything you said before. And then this is what we're focusing on. Bam. That's why I say learning strategic ways to use your but, which is really fun to say. The other thing, or the last thing that I want to talk about today, and it's on some slide that I will find. Ah, yes. Okay. This is stop share. I don't know why doot. I don't know why the doot song is my searching for the screen. People, I recorded myself explaining a technique, and I learned the doot song about myself. Okay. So I have sharing, we're seeing word pictures and spell casting, influential language, right?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that's important to know is the brain cannot process negatives. So if you tell somebody to not something, this is, we do this with like behavior with children. We tell children what to do and we don't tell them what not to do, right? Because then they're focused on the other thing. So word pictures and spell casting is about utilizing positive directive languaging. Other strategies you may have come across is solutions focus, focusing on solutions rather than problems, or positive mindset. People reframe their thoughts around that. The idea is that the words that you use create your reality. They're like spells that you cast. And when I say that the brain doesn't process negatives, I'm saying things like, what happens in someone's mind when you say, don't think of a purple elephant? And when you say things to yourself like, I'm feeling really tired today, when you want to feel more awake, you could just say, I'm not feeling very awake today. And what happens is the brain creates a picture and has thoughts in here, thoughts and pictures, and then your body responds physiologically. You get an emotion from that thought, thoughts create emotions, and you feel it. So if you need to feel more awake, you can just say, I'm not feeling very awake. And your brain's like, oh, awake. What is awake? Oh, let's compare it. How can I compare the contrast the boom? And your body starts feeling awakeness rather than tiredness. If you're feeling tired and you don't want to, and you're only thinking tired, that is what your system is going to do. So what happens is that you get to now put pictures in people's minds. The words you choose to use, the more that you can figure out how to elicit someone else's imagination, including your own, those are the pictures that go inside their head, much like the purple elephant. And those can include the thing you want to do that you're sure that the other person doesn't, but you really want to. You can begin putting in pictures in their heads of things that they care about and like what will happen when they, like, installing the benefit to them in things that they care about to do the thing you really want to do. I'm just gesturing at this because we're about out of time, but I wanted to get this one in there so that you can think of ways where you can hear yourself saying the opposite of what you want. This is also back many slides ago when I was talking about motivated towards or away from, towards pleasure or away from pain. A lot of us speak our pain and make it more real. And we can choose words to speak towards pleasure and towards what we actually want. Energetically, some of us are also saying, here's a for instance, somebody was asking me, their partner was saying, let's see if I can set this up. I have to go back in time. Okay. Her partner was saying that he didn't feel like she trusted him. And so then he made an entire list of all of the ways that he knows that she doesn't trust him. You do this and say this and that, blibbity blobbity blah, 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 right? Cool, we've been in this moment. So my curiosity was, okay, what does trust equal? And where does he feel trust other places? Because he wants trust. He doesn't want not trust. He's just patterned himself into seeing where not trust is happening everywhere, but that's not what he wants. He wants trust, right? So asking him questions to talk about other places in his life where he knows that trust is happening and who he has trust with and how he can tell that other people trust, just describing the thing he actually wants, getting him associated with that. Maybe they find out that he doesn't see trust or feel trust anywhere in any of his relationships, anywhere else since ever. And maybe that's a thing. That's a different thing to talk about than her getting bombarded with all of his examples of not trust. Does this make sense? And this is paying attention to where the language is, what direction the language is going in. And sometimes, and this is a little like upper, sometimes people say words like prosperity and abundance. And they say those words, but when you ask them what that means energetically and in their physiology, they mean not being fucking poor. When they say the words abundance, I want abundance, I really want it. You can use your, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you can use your sensory acuity to pay attention to the fact that the word they're saying doesn't match their physiology or their energy. And that all of their internal picture of the positive word is a negative association. Okay. I will be sending an email. It'll probably take me a couple days to construct things and film stuff of things we didn't cover that are useful. This half was going to be full of a lot of conceptual things, and I really wanted to get the experiential down, and I had no idea how long that was going to take together. Does anybody have any questions? Yay! So that's your just.
I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah.
So Adrian,
yeah,
when you were talking about how the picture and the spell casting with the words, so I mean, you gave an example of sitting down with someone and having a conversation about, okay, tell me what it is that trust does look like to you. But what if you wanted to instill that trust by inserting those words in a conversation without them even being aware what you're talking about?
Right.
Because you're not saying, let's have a conversation about trust. I want them to trust me. I want them to trust the process I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to trust. So how do I go about, can you give an example of inserting words to create trust in that moment?
Can I use your question? I came up with an example of the shape of what you're asking me for, and it might not answer your question at all. Is that okay?
I think it's better you do it in your way than in mine. Yes.
Okay. So the shape of how you put words in someone else's mind. So I frequently find myself having people reach out for quit smoking clients, especially strangers reaching out and saying, hey, what's your price? What's your insurance? And I have a specific way I do it. And then, but they reached out in email or a messenger, and I have to figure out, I have to go through all of the shitty drafts of like, in my head, I'm like, no, I have buttons on my website that you push, and there's a whole process. No one gives a crap about that. They're like, I can't tell them I could tell them the price, but it's not incentivized in the way that you structure telling someone the price. So then I have to go through all of my shitty drafts until I come up with a draft that is, I'm really glad that you reached out and that you're excited about becoming a non-smoker. Now I've just installed that they're excited about becoming a non-smoker. I'm also telling them I'm really glad to hear from you. I also tell them it's a really big step that you've made reaching out for help. Congratulations. And what the easiest way for me to make sure that I answer all of your questions easily, effectively, and in the least amount of time is if you are willing, I'm instructing them to be willing to follow this link and schedule a call for me. That way we both know we can do it at the same time. And I will answer everything you need and get you on the path to being a non-smoker. None of that has anything to do with like my grumpiness at them not going through my funnel the way they like the thing. No, like, right. But they're now excited. They now have the best way to get in touch, the easiest and most effective way. What? Right? That's when you were asking for the shape. I didn't quickly come up with something, but I had this example of what sorts of words. Willing. I love using the question, would you be willing to? Because their brain has to process what willing feels like to do something.
So, yeah, so this is very helpful. So is it better to say you, like, would you be willing to, or would it be, I have found that it's works really well to do it this way?
It depends.
Okay.
High level stuff. It depends on whether it's important for them to be associated or disassociated. Technically, linguistically, I have found it, you're putting it out of the person that they are associated with. So if you're talking about something that's triggering, it may be useful to do a disassociated language. But if you're wanting to have impact, doing the second person where you're saying you and then you're saying words about them, most hypnotists utilize that second person. You feel relaxed and you're going to like, and people are like, I do feel relaxed and I am going deep and my arm does feel different than my other arm, right? So if it's important for somebody to be associated, then you're using you. If you're trying to build a level of abstraction, sometimes metaphors are told because sometimes people do relate more. And if you know the person, they do relate more to watching a story about someone else. So occasionally it makes more sense to say, I know a guy who, and you tell that story, or I saw this movie once and you tell that story, and it has all of the arc of the knowing that you want someone to have. This is like telling a metaphor. And then they're sitting there going, because they're like defensive. And if you talk to them and make them too associated, they're like, I'm going to bite. Don't tell me what to do. It's like, I saw this one guy. No, it was this movie. And he blah, blah, blah. Oh, I like movies. Oh, that's neat. Hey, that's weird. And the unconscious mind is going to be like, oh, dude, like that thing that happened in that movie with that guy, that kind of sounds like our thing. I'm like, I know, it kind of does. And they may get a new realization. But it really depends on the level of emotionality you want somebody to be experiencing. If you need them to calm down, then you may go to abstracted language. And if you really do need them to drop in and feel it and associate, using a you makes more sense. That was a lot, but did you get it, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like it's geeky because I'm like, there's a whole hypnotic language thing that is really hard to teach, and I didn't teach it, but
I work a lot with clients who get triggered, and so I disassociate a lot, and I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But I use metaphors a lot, and I do a lot of teaching through stories. So I do that intentionally. I believe I do because I want them to know that I see and hear and understand, but I'm going to tell this story because it's not going to be exact.
Right.
But I don't know, people who know that I do this can tell me if it's awful or if it works, but I do that often.
You're doing it because you're recognizing nervous system activation that isn't useful to the process that you're doing. It's all about intention and what you're attempting to do and having a level of awareness. And part of why I started with rapport and sensory acuity was also and giving you an emotional agility, like emotional anchors, so that you all can be paying attention to new things. And you're super great at having conflict in ways. I mean, lots of us are really good at having conflict and having emotions show up and not knowing what to do with it and getting new tools to do new things and try new things and pay attention to new stuff. Some of that, it's useful and it's getting your consciousness to try something different and not to be so focused on your own thing. Right. And what's cool is that because now you have new levels of flexibility, you can try different things with different people. Because sometimes knowing that associating, if somebody's already fully associated and associating them deeper isn't useful, then you can throttle that. You can decide when to take them in and out of the emotion as is necessary. Right?
It's less confrontational too.
It can be. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the agreement frame thing also helps a lot, especially with people that you have completely different opinions with, like hearing the words, I appreciate the way that you explain that and how you feel about this. I see where you're coming from. And I have a different perspective. Are you open to hearing about it? Would you be willing to hear? Open to, willing to. And if you really land that earnestly talking about someone's different lived experience, recognizing they're from another planet where a bunch of different things happen than happens on your planet. And then checking and it's like, And I totally appreciate how you've developed that perspective. It's interesting. And I definitely had a different life experience. Would you be open to hearing what I think about that? And then staying in curiosity mode and staying in like the agreement frame, I swear to you, the moment I learned it, I get in rapport and I just do that. But that's a super short workshop. and having these other tools helps the depth of that be far more effective. Any other questions before we go?
I think this was great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your time. Go touch your knuckles. I love you all.
Well, so I would vote that in 2 weeks from now, instead of just doing question and answers, that you bring that hour's worth of whatever else you wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Is that,
Wanna check
wasn't
in with
that an
people.
option? What?
Yeah. I will go back and find out what those are. They're meta programs, different things that you can recognize in other people's behaviors and language. And I still may create something that's like homework that you can poke and study, but I actually don't know if this condensed time is better for that, or in the next 2 weeks, would you have time to look at something if I sent a short video? And
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll do that. We'll do all of the above.
So-
Yay!
We're all very
Lee.
responsible. We'll do our homework.
I can't say I will, but you know,
Fair.
I
Well,
still have.
tax season, you have a
Yeah.
I appreciate
That's
what
right.
you're
You have a
saying,
pass.
Eve, and I understand. You have to be so busy.
What do you, Adrienne,
Good job.
what
Yeah.
do you think of the phrase, we can agree to disagree?
I don't think it's useful because it has a lot of connotation. I think people use it because they want to stop communicating.
Okay, yeah, it's like a cop out.
It's very effective to break rapport and stop communication. And there are times when it makes sense to break rapport and stop communication. There might be different, easier, better ways to do that. And I don't know. I put my brain into how to stay in rapport and build a path to communication and understanding. So my mind isn't shaped around what are the times when you want to break rapport? Weird strangers who are being creepy. You want to break
Yeah.
rapport with them. And yeah. My version of being teased and traumatized as a tiny person led me to wonder what everybody's deal was, such
Yeah.
that I could be safe in the world. So I am highly skilled at figuring out other people's perspectives and
Right.
appreciating why they do what they do. It's really important and vital for my animal body to know why humans do what they do. So the more that I can learn about another person and why they believe and feel the way that they do,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a really great show called The 100 that's the producers put it in this perspective where people do some heinous stuff for survival and every single action from every character is motivated, which isn't the case in old school storytelling where villains were just villains and they were just bad. And so I think that there's a lot more value
Mhm.
in when you haven't come to some aspect of agreement on something to
Mhm.
keep searching for it.
Yeah.
And there's a slide I have for a negotiation model that talks about like if you're trying to achieve something between two opposing forces, how to do negotiation and what you're looking for. And there's always some level of where the disagreement lives here, but there's some sort of highest intention for both sides, the both people in there, of some place where they can come to agreement.
You should be consulting Congress, the ultimate challenge.
Yeah, that presupposes that Congress actually that they want to accomplish things.
There you have it.
I don't
I
know
think
that that's
junior Congress do. I think those that are junior and fresh off the truck are ready to go for it.
sure.
but-
Well, yeah, there are tons of those, like there, the people who get a lifetime salary and get paid whether they do anything or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what needs to exist is that people are actually willing to do things and get things done, and they want to come to an agreement. I don't
Yeah.
know that the structure of our
System.
system needs that from those people,
Right.
but that's an opinion. Similar
right.
to, if
I'm
cops.
having trouble staying awake, so.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm gonna say goodnight.
Thank
But you guys can
you.
continue on. I'm just saying goodnight.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Oh, thank you. This has been fabulous.
Excellent, excellent.
Adrian, fabulous. Really fun too. Lots of
Fantastic,
fun.
really wonderful, really
I'm
wonderful.
glad. Thanks for having me. I will see you in
Thank
2 weeks.
you. So
And I'll
good.
Bye-bye.
Send an
2
email.
weeks.
Bye.
Mm.